Hello, and welcome back to Phrasal Verb News, where we use real news stories to teach you phrasal verbs and idioms in context. First, I'll explain the story in English, and then break down today's expressions with examples. Y, como siempre, voy a dar la traducción al español y un ejemplo para que quede más claro. Let's get started. Today's story is a tragic one, about a Russian climber currently stranded and left for dead on Victory Peak, one of the tallest and most dangerous mountains in the world. At 24,400 feet, it's the highest mountain in the Tian Shan Range, sitting on the border of Kyrgyzstan and China. Because of its brutal conditions, short climbing season, and remote location, it's considered one of the hardest mountains in the world to climb. It's also part of the so-called Snow Leopard Challenge, climbing 5 7,000-meter peaks that were all part of the former Soviet Union, a rare achievement only about 700 people have ever completed. To give you some perspective, about 6,000 people have successfully summited Mount Everest. The climber is Natalya, a highly experienced Russian mountaineer who bravely set out to summit Victory Peak earlier this month. While she did succeed in reaching the summit, during her descent on August 12th, she broke her leg, leaving her stranded on the mountain. Other climbers managed to reach her and drop off some supplies, but the extreme icy conditions made it impossible to evacuate her. Rescue teams repeatedly set out to bring her down, but every mission ran into dangerous weather and other complications. At one point, she was spotted by a drone on a ridge near the summit, and rescuers hoped she could somehow pull through despite her terrible injury. But as the days passed, hope faded, and tragedy struck when an Italian climber named Luca, part of the rescue effort, died trying to save her. Finally, with snow making conditions impossible, authorities were forced to call off or cancel the search. Officials say they cannot confirm whether or not Natalya is still alive. Let's move on to the vocab. And as always, I'll give you some examples and ask you a question, so try to answer the question out loud or in your head so you can practice the new words right away. First, we have set out. This is to begin a journey or a big task. For example, rescuers set out on multiple missions to reach her. The business set out to expand into Asia this year. En español, es como emprender o ponerse en camino. Por ejemplo, la empresa emprendió un ambicioso plan de expansión. What's the most ambitious goal that you've ever set out to achieve? Next, we have run into. This means to encounter someone or something unexpectedly. You could run into an old friend at the supermarket, or you may run into a problem at work. For example, rescuers ran into heavy snow and bad weather. We ran into supply chain delays last quarter. En español es como toparse con o encontrarse con problemas o algo así. Por ejemplo, nos topamos con dificultades en la implementación del proyecto. Can you think of a time when you ran into problems at work? Next, we have drop off. This means to deliver or leave something for someone. For example, climbers dropped off supplies to help Natalya survive. I'll drop off the documents at your office tomorrow. En español es como dejar o entregar. Por ejemplo, dejaron suministros para ayudar la escaladora. Do you typically drop off your work in person or send it by email? Finally, we have pull through, to survive or recover from a very difficult situation. For example, rescuers hoped she could pull through despite her injury and the brutal conditions. The company pulled through the recession and came back stronger. En español es salir adelante o recuperarse. Por ejemplo, esperaban que pudiera salir adelante pese a las dificultades. Has your company ever had to pull through a financial crisis or difficult situation? What happened? So to recap, Natalya's fellow climbers dropped off supplies after she broke her leg. But every time rescuers set out to help her, they ran into terrible weather. Eventually, the mission was called off. Now, as hopes fade, many are hoping she can somehow pull through. That's all for today's episode of Phrasal Verb News. Gracias por escuchar. I'm Grant, and don't forget to subscribe on Spotify or YouTube so you don't miss tomorrow's episode. See you next time.